we've only been trying to keep on take risks because this is what's exciting, and not trying to fill an existing place rather than expanding it with trying different things, and sometimes more or less appealing maybe to the people, but appealing to ourselves for sure. We're very honored and very happy to have been the movie to have been selected by the Directors Fortnight. It was really a great joy to share it with the people for the first time. The parting is a bit hard, so we're a bit hangover, but we're very happy.
When we met, we were like 12 and 13, and for the first 4 years we were friends. We only went to movies and stuff and looking at videotapes, and we never did music for the 4 first years. It's after that we had separate bands, and then ultimately we made music together. The first love was movies and cult movies in general. So it was something, as we've always been, at the same time as being friends, we were really creative. There was a lot of creativity in our friendship. So doing one day one movie was an idea that we didn't even talk about, but that was obvious. I told Thomas the other day, my father has got a tape of us when we were 12, and where we did our first music video, and so the collaboration and maybe the movie side or visual side started long before making music together. I think we took the time to learn from others, and it took a lot of years, but step by step, project by project, we stayed maybe a little bit behind, and we tried to learn. And since then, we step by step, little by little, we tried to build a wall, to build to learn, and then Electroma came after having done the videos for Human After All. We set up a small production company in America, and we felt that there was at that time a good opportunity to start experimenting a little bit more, and with this format of a feature film, whereas we wanted to experiment pretty much the same way that we had done it with music 10 years before, which is looking at it with a very free spirit and open-minded approach, and trying to break some rules and experiment. The challenges of the kind of teamwork that is making a film, which is so much more of a human adventure of working with all these different departments and overcoming obstacles and challenges and problems and solving them in unison, like pretty much what touring is also, which is much more about teamwork and about something which ultimately is really rewarding. Our approach has been really a global from a creative standpoint, and not just purely musical, and people, maybe it took a little bit of time for people to understand that, and thinking that it was maybe music with some people would see it maybe with music with a very clever marketing around or something like that, but it was not that at all, and we really focused on expressing ourselves and expanding this creation from music and tracks, and then working on DVD or different music videos at the time, or a Japanese animation film, or a film, or a tour, and with all of these elements being as important or a full part of what we're doing, and not just about it's 15 years down the line we've done 3 albums and our studio albums and that's it, and looking at all of these elements and taking the time to work on all these different sides of the project, because it's really in this combination of all these
all these art forms, and that we thought that there was an opportunity for us to express something that would maybe go beyond a musical trend. What attracted us in doing this first film as an experimental kind of midnight movie, and in a very strange, hypnotic, psychedelic, contemplative way, and because it felt at some point, and we've always tried to express ourselves in different ways, but it felt like maybe there's almost a crave for redefining what the underground is. We felt that maybe doing a weird science fiction contemplative silent film like that in a way is more underground than making electronic music, and it doesn't distance us from wanting to do both. But it's funny to see today in the culture what can still be considered more or less non-accessible, and what is not accessible is then still exciting, and just from the fact of it's going to a movie theater at midnight and meeting like 50 strangers or 100 and 200 people there is some things that tended to exist in the 60s or 70s, then they disappeared with a videotape, and then maybe they can re-happen in different scenarios. Okay, let's just try to stand in as you were looking at yourself, guys. What we found interesting there was trying to have the same initial contact with the technique and the technology that we had with music or electronic music, which was we'd never been to music engineering school or anything like that, and try to handle the technique and the technology and trying to express something powerful musically, as we did with our first record, and experimenting with things and being inspired either by rock influences or disco or funk or and working with frequencies and noise and textures, and here for this film it was really the idea of trying to do the same thing visually, which almost working in an abstract way, as well as thinking about an audience or an image that would be projected in front of an audience on a big screen, but in a very experimental and very minimal way. And it was working with minimalism at the same time. So it's true we didn't think about the film initially about watching it on a small screen or rather than almost as a social thing. And I think it triggered. The idea started when we after watching the Interstellar, the film we had made in Japan, and looking at all these people inside a theater, watching it and saying, wow, there's like many things that haven't been done within context of a theater, and it was less about trying to do a good film on top of all the magnificent film that have been made, rather than saying, if we look at the theatrical experience of just you have a 35mm projector or a digital projector and people in a room with a surround sound system, what can you do that hasn't been done? And whether you get inspiration from psychedelia or from paintings or surrealism or different things like that. The feeling that you can have in some paintings and surrealist paintings, probably more like someone like Magritte, and maybe in other surrealist painters, or Dali, or maybe some Buñuel films, or the idea of when you make two things collide, and there's a feeling that gets out of it, especially when there's a sense of absurdity or lack of logic. We thought that it was interesting to understand how these things would still trigger an emotion or a feeling and working with non-verbal elements. It's working on a film that would pretty much be an environment where everything is part of the environment, and these robots are almost because the characters are robots, and in a way they're machines, so they're not human, and there is almost no story, no script, or it would be something, a film where you take all of the element of what's inside a film, and in fact the actor as the only human being is the audience, and at the same time it's the audience that wanders through this environment, and a little bit like in surrealism, the absurdity or the lack of logic makes, like when you look at Magritte painting, for example, makes the viewer very active in trying to put the numbers or try to put some kind of logic, whether it's pure logic, or it's an emotion, or it's a feeling, or try to imprint instinctively emotions, or some kind of order. That's how the brain functions, and we thought it was exciting, because we would try to just put this environment a little bit like what you can find sometimes in video games, and it was pretty much the same idea about finding an environment around getting into an experience and not really knowing what's happening to you, and obviously what's happening is not really a regular film experience. I think it's a metaphor to explain how obviously technology could be evolved and end up being so close to humans, but also to look at the way the society is, and what is the level of automation in the world we already live in. Two things also, which was in our personal experiences, the experience of the film itself, which is something, and then the memory of the experience of the film, which for many movies that we liked, or cult films, which is very different and very interesting, which is the sense to what extent the experience of the film is something. It's like a book. Sometimes it's and then the memory you have and what it leaves on your the persistence of some images has a completely different effect than the moment you see it. And it's true that it seems that now more and more films are made on the instant experience of it, during the effect that the film has while you watch it, and then there's nothing after that. Whereas we were trying to see what kind of things could the film leave as either images or impressions or emotions, and the effect of it, the mid-term to long-term effect, rather than the instant one. I don't know. The way we try to create things is always to create the most legitimate work of art or music, or in a way of being original, but also just making something as if it was already here without being here. I think the interesting thing here is at our time is that there's an ability nowadays, especially to not only express ourselves using all these existing formats and that are set, and wanting to try all of these, rather than the ability today to custom make and to create these formats and create new formats, and where the not only the substance is interesting, but all these new forms and ways of expressing ourselves, and for artists to express themselves artistically with really new opportunities. A lot of things that have been done and that even were done right now, I think, are going to disappear. But art and music and stories and storytelling and and audiences and artists have always been there, and it's really exciting to see that as many setups or opportunities are disappearing, 10 times more are appearing or are yet to be discovered, and it's exciting to feel that there are things to be discovered, because sometimes the problem of an artist is feeling that everything has been done and that there's nothing left to do, and sometimes it's been the case within the formats, but here it's really open-ended.